All right, welcome back to Modern Mondays at Guardian Games. We have some round two action ready for y'all to watch, and the matchup we have is.
Naya Midrange versus Gruul Ponza. As much as I'm not a green player, I do like seeing both Naya and Gruul battling each other. And it looks like we got the sub game that was pretty exciting there of the die roll. One of my favorite sub games of Magic. We got a 12 beating an 11.
Oh yeah,
Love it.
not something you expect. You kind of if your opponent rolls an 11, you kind of toss the dice out there just in ceremony, knowing that you're going to be disappointed. So very uncommon to really get that feeling of ecstasy from snatching the die roll from the jaws of defeat, which is truthfully not a feeling you get when you do evens or odds. But
No, that's why, as much as I respect people doing evens or odds to save time, I do like the high roll. I like tying a couple times, the suspense builds. But back to the game, it looks like Curran is starting off with the now ubiquitous Once Upon a Time into a fetch land. Getting a basic forest.
into a non-ubiquitous OG Onslaught Wooded Foothills signed.
Yeah, well, so whenever your opponent fetches for basic forest Arbor Elf, there should be some warning signs going off. What are those warning signs for you, Ian?
Oh man, you are immediately expecting to get Blood Mooned, because that's what decks that play Arbor Elf and Basic Forest do, unless they are. I guess there's been some of those like mono green Nykthos leyline decks that have shown their face, but I don't think those actually play Arbor Elf.
Yeah, well, the Genesis Wave decks do, so.
Right.
But
But I don't think Arbor Elf works with a leyline of the green leyline.
correct, it does not work with the Leyline of Abundance.
Yes, that's correct. So asking us about what we would play. Kurt is actually pretty well set up for this.
Oh, we got a pillage. So pillage is one, a red and a red, and it's going to destroy an artifact or a land. Seems like usually there you have your stone rain, which is two and red that just destroys the land, and then you have your upgraded one and red land destruction spells like
It
pillage.
looks like Kurt has a. Okay, so Kurt can fetch here, fetch, and then play the Ren and 6 in hand, and Ren and 6 just absolutely takes a giant dump on what Kern is trying to do this game.
Cool pillage.
Yeah.
How about I'll get it back?
Yeah, how about I get my forest back? Yeah, Red and 6 is not what you want to see when you're. I mean, there are a lot of things you don't want to see when you're playing Ponza, but Red and 6 is certainly one of them. You'd also rather not see another deck that's playing green in a lot of cases. Uh, Fuzzy asks what we would play at a Pioneer MCQ. Well, Travis and I both have kind of, at this point, maybe what you'd call outdated Pioneer decks.
Hey, mine is still waiting for its time to shine.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sort of letting Pioneer settle down for a little bit after Theros came out, and I'm really liking Modern right now. It's got a little
Ooh.
bit like limited time for the Magics lately, and I've been mostly just doing some fun Modern brews. But I play a prized amalgam deck in Pioneer that is pretty fun. Trying to merge a deep fiend, get some prized amalgams in there, haunted deading people, treasure cruising.
And I was playing the Is It and Soul deck, which was really, really well positioned when everybody was playing Niv Mizzet and the mono green ramp deck and blue white control. I think it had a pretty good matchup against all of those decks, and then everybody stopped playing those decks and started playing a bunch of decks that are extremely good against Is It and Soul. So I would absolutely not be playing that deck at this point. Honestly, I think I would probably run. I mean, I think the Breach deck is probably tier 0, and the Inverter deck is probably a close second. They both just seem like incredibly elegant and difficult decks to play, but will really, really reward like a thoughtful player. Looks like Curran's going the pillage route, and it looks like there is a Inferno Titan in hand. So Curran's entire plan just involves basically keeping Kurt from doing too much of consequence until Curran can land an Inferno Titan, then hoping to just ride the Inferno Titan to victory.
Feels like Curran's turned this Ponza deck into a tempo deck right now.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
The sad part is that Kurt is on Naya, and one of the things that Naya has that's very good in a situation like this is Past Exile. Doesn't look like Kurt has one in hand, but certainly an elegant way to deal with some huge fatty like an Inferno Titan. Trying to see if Curran has the Titan wrapped up.
Tier 0 basically means in like Magic terms, just speaking casually, is like that is the deck to beat because it is the best deck.
Right.
And Tier 1 usually means like people argue semantics a little bit, but it's like representation at events, not necessarily like win rates at events. So like Tier 1 decks are ones that you're expected to face a reasonable amount of time if you played a large event, in my opinion. So some people might argue with that a little bit. Ooh, haven't seen the cat in a while. I love the wild Nicodle.
Cat making an appearance. Sports state is pretty scary. Here we see Inferno Titan.
Oh, it looks like we took out a bird and a Bloodbraid Elf. And it may have slowed the attacks there for a minute.
Ooh, that looks like a Knight of the Reliquary for Kurt. Which,
this is weird.
Knight of the Reliquary plus Voice of Resurgence can absolutely tangle with this Inferno Titan.
It would seem like Knight of the Reliquary is a bit of a nombo with Rin and 6, but there is some play to that as well. But this is just such a strange interaction when Curran's been blowing up, you know, Kurt's lands, and then we have a Knight, but then we have Rin and 6 to get the lands back, and it's this weird kind of like figure 8 that we're doing.
It just feels like a straight up nightmare for Curran, honestly. And Kurt has just had some really heads up fetching in this match. Is pretty much completely insulated from a Blood Moon. I think it's actually a real choice here whether you want to tick up Ren and leave the land in yard or pick it up. And Kurt, in fact, does go with no targets, which would leave the Knight at a 6/6, I believe.
Well, we got another pillage for Curran.
Definitely make Curran think twice about attacking with this Titan. I think you probably pick off the Nicodle here. And then force the Knight to block. And gets the trade here. So that's significant. I mean, Kurt's definitely been building an advantage here, but Tireless Tracker can easily bring Curran back into this game, especially if Kurt's not looking at some other chunky blockers. It looks like another Nicodle in hand, which could trade with the Bone Crusher Giant. So this is pretty solid for Kurt.
It feels like Kurt just got a little bit just too much advantage from that Rin and 6, basically blanking Curran's spells and then effectively drawing Kurt a card. So,
right.
The board is now reassembled.
So again, Kurt has to decide, do we pick up a land? And I think this time it's worth it to pick up the land. Um, I wouldn't say Naya's making a comeback, Chad. I think it's just this specific player has run Naya the past few weeks, and Naya has some good cards in the deck. So, uh, Naya, Jund, any of these kind of three-color mid-range decks, if you hit the right matchup, oftentimes people that are kind of tilting in one particular direction to beat some particular type of deck, your card quality is generally pretty high.
Oh, I think we're gonna go get a Century step here and give this voice pro red.
We could do that. We could also maybe get, yes, a
Oh,
help. The
everything gets. Is that a wolf run?
yes,
Okay,
Kessig
Kessig
Wolf Run. Yep, Kessig Wolf Run here. It'll make it a 3/2, so it'll trade with the giant.
Does Naya play Blood Moon? Blood Moon is in the board of Kurt's deck. I'll bring up the sideboard after this game. But
Although probably a card that neither player will have any interest bringing in this matchup.
no, and there definitely is a cost for the post-board games when Kurt brings in the Blood Moons. You got to be like way more conservative on how you deploy your mana. So it's like a silver bullet type card where you're
Right.
not bringing it in a ton of matchups. Only the ones where it really kind of shuts down your opponent, which is mostly going to be Amulet Titan in Modern.
Right, yeah, it's got to be really, really good in the matchup, and fortunately, there is a matchup that it's really good in. Curran does find a Glorybringer, which is, I mean, Glorybringer is decent here, but I don't think any of these are good enough to get Curran out of the current predicament.
Was that an intentional pun? The current predicament?
No.
I was going to give you props there.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, can I still get props for unintentional?
Oh. Yeah, it's really a. Oh. Okay, well, that's a start,
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean,
You
you
got it.
get the fun of, there's always like a little bit of excitement in Cascade.
Yeah, I feel like when you're losing, you have to make your high variance plays and hope that you end up getting lucky. And that once upon a time wasn't what Curran was after.
So,
Oh, sideboard.
I think from a theory perspective, if I'm on Curran's side, I am going to try and get away from my more Ponza-y land destruction elements and maybe hope to beat Kurt in the mid-range game, although maybe Naya's just a much stronger mid-range deck, so Curran's really going to have to think about whether it's worth it to try and be the better mid-range deck or just hope to lean into the land destruction elements.
Well, so Curran's top end is pretty good. As for the sideboard, it looks like we have for Curran 3 Anger of the Gods, an Ensnaring Bridge, a Pithing Needle, a Worm Coil Engine, 3 Madcap Experiments, Platinum Empyrean, a Grafdigger's Cage, Explosives, and 3 Obstinate Baloffs. I guess I like any of the threats better than I like Pillages. Or Blood Moons, if those are in the main deck, right? Like the Baloffs are
Yeah.
fine. Worm Coils also fine. Madcap package I'm not super into because I imagine Kurt's still leaving Empath Exiles, and so that package is pretty weak to that.
It's so hard because like Baloth is such a medium card that like if you're boarding into a mid-range deck that's just playing Baloths, I just feel like you're a strictly worse version of what Kurt's doing.
I don't know. Your opponent's playing Wild Nicodles. Baloth lines up pretty well against that card.
Yeah,
It's way better than drawing a Pillage.
but it's a 4 mana card and Wild Nicottle's a 1 mana card.
Well, I would say Wild Nicottle is effectively a 2 mana card.
Sure.
And
Sure.
then Curran is playing Ramp, so you're probably not boarding out your Ramp. But I bet you are boarding out all of your Blood Moons and all of your land destruction spells when you're playing against a Wrenn and 6.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I just don't think you win if you lean into mid-range here, as much as I dislike the pillages as well.
Huh. I guess we'll agree to disagree because I feel like Curran can tangle in the mid range, but his top end threats are just so much bigger than Kurt's, minus a card like Knight of the Reliquary, which I think that
Ooh.
is going to be like the big issue in the
Well,
matchup.
let's toss this to chat for a beer. Uh, I will. You haven't agreed to this yet, but chat. If you believe that Curran should board into kind of more of a mid-range deck and bring in the Baloths, go ahead and sound off. And if you are with me and believe that Curran should maybe stick to the game plan of land destruction and not play the mid-range game, sound off if you're
Yeah,
with that.
I'm fine. I'm fine putting beer on that because I'm probably right.
Yeah. Well, if the worst that can happen is I get to buy you a beer, it's not so bad. No, no. Okay. Okay, we've got two for you, mid-range, a couple on the mid-range, and then one that's kind of like half for me. Mad Cow Chicken's giving me like half a.
Okay, well, let's look at Kurt's sideboard. We're gonna
Okay, I'm
have
getting slaughtered.
Yeah, we're gonna have Ancient Grudge, two Blood Moons, two Thalia Guardians of Thraven, a Blessed Alliance, two Chandra Torch of Defiance, a couple Tormrad Crypts, Knight of Autumn, a Blast Zone, two Damping Spheres, and a Fiery Justice.
Chandra seems amazing. Really big fan of Chandra, and that's about it. Blessed Alliance is okay. Not a big fan, but a lot of Curran's creatures are pretty solid. Tireless Trackers or Infernal Titans. If you can Blessed Alliance one of those, it's not the worst.
Yeah, it feels like Curran is probably just gonna be attacking with one, maybe two fatties instead of just sort of swarming the board.
Samshire one with the extremely non-committal comment, weighing in on neither side of the debate.
Huh.
So I'd say, we're at like 3 for you, 1 for me. Mad Cow Chickens, kind of, I would say siding with me.
But there aren't any answers for Ren and 6 in the board, so I feel like I
Yeah,
win that one.
it's true. There are no answers for Ren and 6 in the board besides attacking it down. Arbor Elf.
Well, you know what you can't do is you can't attack it down with pillages.
It's it's true, but how many Ren 6s could Kurt be playing?
4, definitely 4.
Well, still not guaranteed to have one.
I feel like we should pull up Fiery Justice on our
Sure.
little card cam because it's a pretty sweet card.
Yes, and quite old as well. But I would say not for this matchup.
Oh, it looks like we're getting a basic forest off of Once Upon a Time.
Fiery Justice is one of the most satisfying cards to play against humans, and also just like such sick art. And
All
some
right.
super medium flavor text to go along with it. All right, Travis. Well, I owe you beer tonight.
Yes. So we got Arbor Elf bolted there. So usually these Ponza decks are wanting to go from 1 to 3 or, skip. You basically want to skip turn 2. Oh, wait, what card did Kurt just play?
Gee, I can't tell.
Huh. Something costs 2 and has counters on it.
Uh,
You know what? Kurt didn't play fetch land though, so that Ren and 6.
no value.
Yep.
Ooh. Current's just going upstairs. We're going on the ignore Ren and 6 route.
I feel like that is an undervalued axis of attack. There is a lot of times people are always used to just like taking out planeswalkers because they're such like generically good cards that accrue a lot of value. But like on this board, Wrenn and 6 isn't really doing anything, especially having kept in the Blood Moons. It's not really going to do much until it ultimates, and Curran is suspecting that he's going to be able to
Ooh.
add something to the board
He's
before
going
that
to be
ultimates.
so sad when Kurt drops the basic planes in hand. Wait for it. Oh, it's a dagger.
So I'm not even sure I play the basic planes in that situation.
You just leave him in the dark for a little while longer.
Well, if you think that Curran's still left in land destruction,
Oh yeah.
if you had another option of a land to play, I don't think you should fall behind on your land drops. But
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. If you're not actually looking at playing something with the planes, I do think keeping it in hand is.
So whenever he's targeted by a spell, yeah, he takes 2.
Taking a look at the Bone Crusher Giant. Scourge of Standard and Pioneer.
yeah, as much as I found a lot of Throne to be really poor play design, I actually like this card a lot.
Both adventure cards I think are fantastic that are seeing a lot of play. Bone Crusher Giant as well as Brazen Borrower.
Agreed. Yeah, I like that design space a lot.
And I really love the this alternate card frame too that came in Throne.
They even made room for some flavor text there.
Oh my gosh, they did.
Not every tale ends in glory.
Hmm.
Squish.
It's pretty medium. Not like Squeeze Toy.
I was just amazed that Fiery Justice had pretty significant flavor text on a card that had a lot of rules text.
Right.
Oh, Glorybringer.
And with it, I'm going to attack you for 4,
No exert. So Glorybringer's just going to be a hasty 4-power flying attacker.
Kind of interesting that the Blood Moon is actually going to neuter the Renin 6 ultimate by quite a bit. Cutting Kurt off of fetch lands may make quite a big difference if this Renin 6 does actually make it to ultimate.
Getting some value there, cycling a land, getting it back. Oh, we get an upkeep
So
stop.
Ooze might do
Feels
some
like a
eating.
path to exile.
Oh,
Oh, that's bad.
that's a house.
Yeah, Curran I think was hoping that the Glorybringer would go all the way there.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the Ponza way is to hope that the Blood Moon is enough, and then whatever one threat you have is good enough. But rips a Glory Bringer off the top, just so rude.
Combat, I'm going to attack Renin 6, exert, target here.
Okay, so Curran's decided we can't let this Renin 6 ult. Has seen that we're starting to cycle the Tranquil Thicket. I am like half on board with this, and also fairly worried as I think. Go ahead.
Oh, I feel like the big reason why we did that is if now that Path to Exile is in the graveyard, if Rin ults, that means every time Kurt draws a land, it's going to turn into a path, and Curran's seeing like creatures are the way that he wins the game. So
That's a good point, Travis. It's a good point. Can't argue with that logic.
that's why I get paid the big bucks here.
Yeah.
By big dollars, I mean
A beer when you win a bet with me.
yeah. Oh, that's such a sweet cascade. That's what you
Oh.
want to hit.
That's so dirty. I mean, it's only a 2/2, so I guess like medium to low dirty
It's
on this
now a
board.
3/3.
Yes. And then it might go back to being a 2/2.
Yeah, we're just valuing the card draw here at this point.
Which makes sense. Blood Moon is also a little awkward with Knight of the Reliquary. you're generally not playing that many basics in a deck like this, and so activating Knight to toss your forest or your plains is a little bit sketchy if you're not actually able to get more basics out of your library.
I'll put a Utopia Sprawl on this forest and name green. I'm gonna cast Once Upon a Time.
Oh,
So if
spinning.
you're current here, what do you... Ooh, that looks like some Blood Moons. I would think... yes, I would think a Bloodbraid Elf would be...
Oh, Inferno Titan would also be pretty sweet too.
Yeah, the nice thing about Bloodbraid is you can actually just toss it out this turn.
Oh.
Okay. Bone Crusher
Ooh.
Giant can pick, stomp. Ooh, I would have stomped the Knight maybe here. I think I wanted to see a stomp on the Knight. What are your thoughts?
I feel like Knight has some, like, can turn into a really powerful card, and has more utility than Bloodbraid Elf does. Like, it has a text box that can matter, where Bloodbraid already did its thing. So I agree with you. Curran might also just have missed that Knight was a 2/2.
Yes, also possible.
Very rarely do you see Knights performing in a ballet. Because it's a 2/2.
Ah, I was really thinking that somehow that connected to Stomp. I was like, did they stomp
No.
it? I was like, that's crumping, Travis.
No, it's
Wrong
just
dance.
just a 2/2. I just came up with that one
Oh,
right
okay.
then.
Well, you're going to have to find a clever co-commentator.
I miss Urchin.
Oh, boosh.
Uh, well, that's a swing for 4 with the Exalted triggers.
Ooh, I don't know if you win this by playing offense here, though.
Well, Knight could grow to be a 4/4 if you block, activate to on the defense. If like Knight doesn't attack, it can block, activate, cycle.
Yes. Rips another Ren off the top. I mean, Ren's not doing a ton here.
You can take care of the Glorybringer right now with a minus on the Ren and a Lightning Bolt in hand, which I'd be pretty incentivized to do.
Yes, definitely with you there. And then the Knight is going to hold up the... then the Knight will hold up the Bloodbraid Elf.
It's a pretty good game. This has been interesting decisions.
It's a good line by that you were suggesting and that Kurt is taking here as well.
Yeah, that Glorybringer would run away with the game if it was able to attack and exert again.
For sure.
I kind of like attacking right now.
Man, I think you win this game if it goes much longer. I mean, I guess Curran does have some pretty strong top decks here, but this Ponza deck also has plenty of very weak top decks.
Well, you're supposed to side those out to put in the threats.
I mean, you're still playing Utopia Sprawls and Arbor Elves.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what would look okay right now?
Activating the Knight, blocking with a 4/4, and
I was going to say an Aslan Bailoff, but...
out.
So Blood Moon is in the main deck. That's part of Ponza's game plan here. So I feel like it was more Curran decided not to take them out.
Right.
I'm guessing we took the Pillages out and then added some other mid-range threats, but didn't have anything better enough to bring in.
No, can't do that. Okay. So...
you can grab something else.
Okay. So Kurt's going to commit. Kurt was not operating under the assumption of Blood Moon here. However, Knight is still going to become a 4/4.
Alright, main phase 2. Bone Crusher Giant.
Curran's going to run out Bone Crusher.
We'll play another Utopia Sprawl.
And we see one of the very medium draws. Medium to bad draws available.
Oh,
Oh, that's tough. So net 1.
That's pretty good.
I mean, Kurt doesn't. Kurt's only green mana comes from the Noble Hierarchs here, so uh, it's possible that Night Activation may
Well,
come back to haunt.
that's the cool thing about Wrenn and 6, is that you can just get the forest
Oh
back.
yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful card.
Yeah, German Gary Oak. I think they look low powered when they're playing against each other. I think, Naya's firmly in the mid range camp, so it's really trying to nickel and dime its opponents for a win. And the Ponza deck is leaning a lot on land destruction and or Blood Moon to basically just win the game for you. And the rest of your cards are like pretty medium
Yeah.
beyond that.
I feel like this is basically like decks that are metagaming, where Kurt's saying, like, I think Lightning Bolt is a good card, and I think having like big creatures on Wrenn and 6 is a powerful thing to be doing. And Curran's saying, like, I think Stone Rains of Blood Moons are good enough to be playing in the main deck because it shuts off enough decks like Tron and Amulet. But when you end up playing against each other, it doesn't look like you're doing powerful things because you're sort of trying to play against a meta and, not necessarily just be doing like a Jund thing where you're just playing like solid value cards.